Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajma'in. Saudari Oni, Najiha, pengarah program, Saudara Syed Muhammad Arif, Presiden Perdana Fellows Alumni Association, Mr. Farhan, our Group CEO, PNET, pimpinan-pimpinan VVIP yang bersama, distinguished guests, the partners who have kindly rendered and given your support, members of the media, and I think most importantly, the ones we are celebrating here, the delegates of YEF 2023, ladies and gentlemen, syukur Alhamdulillah kita bertemu berbekal kesedaran bahawa setiap saat itu berharga dan solidariti sebagaimana ditunjukkan oleh Perdana Fellows kita menjadi kewajipan bersama. Kita mahu menolak jenayah perang dan mempertahan mangsa keaganan manusia iaitu rakyat Gaza dan Palestin. Ia menjadi kewajipan bersama. Immediate ceasefire, and we must end the genocide. How we were outspoken when Ukrainians faced their plight, so shall we do the same in this regard. Demi keadilan sejagat, demi memacu masa depan yang kalis cabaran, we're talking about from extremism, worsening rogue states' behavior, and the return of the moral compass to the international world order. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Malaysia Madani. I bid hello to all of you and I call all of you the chosen ones. The chosen few have had first-hand experience, perhaps more so than me, in managing bureaucracy and navigating government to ensure not just effective but meaningful delivery takes place. Despite the politics, and I don't just mean the politicians, because as you know, there's politics everywhere. Indeed, Perdana Fellows Alumni Association, yours is an entity that has survived and served many administrations, and yours is a noble mission to serve in government, no matter the role, to work in Malaysia's favor and for its future. The very best governments place the most capable and workable minds in the country in order to solve seriously complex and challenging problems. The very best governments prioritize the national mission, and it's everyone's job, yours and mine, regardless of our position, to ensure and to steer the government towards this mission. In my current hat, Farhan had asked me what I was doing before. My previous hat was as a member of parliament for about 3 terms. And right now, I lost my job, the last elections. And right now, in my current hat, as co-head of the Secretariat, we serve Tan Sri Hassan Marikan. It really brings me so much pleasure because we get to collectively work with a grouping of policy enthusiasts. We have economists, data scientists, financial analysts within the government and its related ecosystem, all in pursuit of evidence-based policy making in pursuit of reforms. So thank you for inviting me to share some of my personal insights. It is my hope that we can learn from each other's respective experiences. I think the director of the program has given you many reminders to be proactive and to speak up. And I think it's just a reminder that not everyone is accorded the same space to speak up. Where many are silenced and many do not necessarily enjoy, I call it the lottery of birth, because we are Malaysians, we are not stateless, but not everyone enjoys the same opportunity. The theme of your choosing is growing prosperity, working together, restoring Malaysia. Each action item, my dear ladies and gentlemen, is very challenging in its own right. We are to grow prosperity. That's the task expected of us. I forgot the pengurusi majlis. Hello everyone, sorry. We have to grow prosperity as the global economy slows down. We had many engagements with the World Bank, even EY, private sector, including the government agencies. So with FDI flows shrinking worldwide, it's going to be a big challenge. We are also left with deeper gaps because after the pandemic, you see the gaping hole in our healthcare as well as education sectors. We also have to work together. That's your other action item. When the Malaysian society, both rural and urban, not just having that divide, are more polarized than before. When one's race and religion becomes an issue, even though it's 2023. So there's much work, again, to do because, as your president stated, you do need to honestly come face to face with your past, the good and the bad, the strong and the weak. And this work to restore Malaysia and our collective future becomes all the more challenging, right? Because we're witnessing more humanitarian suffering due to the weaknesses of imperial powers to fairly dispense justice and condemnation across allies and foes. So all difficult challenges, but I would say it is not impossible. So what now? The pandemic had a range of financial, occupational, social, and psychological impacts on people, especially those at the bottom of our society. The pandemic served, among others, a reminder that we cannot allow anyone to fall through the cracks. I think as a consequence, the government realizes that it is imperative to have some provision of a basic social security net to prevent anyone from falling below a certain level of human dignity. We just attended a very important symposium organized by the University Malaya Social Wellbeing Research Center, and we had speakers, predominantly the social protection expert, Dr. Stephen Kidd, as well as Dr. Amjad Rabi, who last served with ILO Iraq. So I think it's really important to study these findings and the structure of the Malaysian demography and society, but also move towards plugging those gaps. In the committee where I serve, we leverage on existing expertise belonging to EPF, KRI, Hazanah Research Institute, Think City, Hazanah, among others, all willing to share their insights. So this, we believe, is an important step in achieving Malaysia Madani. I'm sure you've heard that term many times, but allow me to share my own insights as someone who heard it when I was Form 4 or 16 years old. Basically, it's a concept originating from the Arabic word Madaniya. It means civilization or highly developed social culture. So it was proposed as a model of good governance that aspires to establish social, economic, and structural conditions that can facilitate the emergence of a civilized society. It's not new or even a foreign concept, rather a fundamental principle in the Islamic theories of polity and governance ever since the medieval Muslim philosophers such as Al-Farabi to contemporary Muslim thinkers such as Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas. In his Islam, the concept of religion and the foundations of ethics and morality, Al-Atas explains that the term Madaniya or Tamadun is derived from the Arabic word Madana, which means to build or to found cities, to civilize, refine, and humanize. So how could a civilized society allow anyone to live in a destitute, undignified life? No dignified society, we believe, should tolerate it when you have the resources to prevent it. In fact, we argue that a civilized, prosperous society should be able to guarantee everyone's social mobility, social security net, equality of opportunity regardless of social background, quality universal medical care, education, decent housing, affordable childcare and allowances, retirement benefits, and even a minimum income. It's in essence an agenda, a mission that not only aims at raising the ceiling, but also raising the floor. In other words, not only aspire, as mentioned earlier, to become a leading Asian economic powerhouse, but also to elevate dignity and status of our people. I added a part of aging faster than you think, because it affects you, it affects the youth. We're not living in a vacuum. We live together with different ages and groups. Nonetheless, you talk about the Malaysian youth of today and tomorrow. You face a more precarious future as our nation transitions from an aging society to an aged one in just over 2 decades, from 2020 to 2043. So we have a brief 23-year window. It stands in stark contrast to France and Sweden, which had the luxury of 115 years and 85 years, respectively. It's a big challenge that I guess when I was younger, did not expect Malaysia to face. So what are indeed the choices that are before us? You mentioned the 5 key areas you're going to work on. Well, from a policymaker perspective, I recall the story of Xerxes, or Keshaya Rasa, the Persian king of kings, in his conversation with his uncle and advisor, Artabanus, before embarking on a war of revenge. So the advisor goes, "The prudent leader dreads and reflects on everything that can happen to him, but is bold when he is in the thick of action." To which the king replied, "If you were to take account of everything, you would never do anything. It is better to have a brave heart and endure 1/2 of the terrors than suffer nothing at all. Big things are won by big dangers." I guess in our committee, we're trying to push for bigger things to be done. And of course, we understand we're not facing the dangers directly. But I think under Tan Sri Hassan Marikan, we are grappling with 4 scary things. The first is on government revenue. How do we increase the nation's revenue base and manage the ballooning operating expenditure? Second is restructuring subsidies to ensure that we provide for more holistic social protection, one currently very fragmented. The third, on the review to determine the relevance of GLCs in the current context and consolidate them where appropriate. This includes not just GLCs, GLICs, but also statutory bodies. And of course, the fourth, our national debt. How indeed do we keep them in check to manage and sustain all of you, the future generations? So as our nation matures and economy deepens in complexity, we require heightened involvement of the public sector to enable proper redistribution of wealth and public goods. But such functions, they need to be revisited, reviewed from time to time to ensure they meet their targeted objectives. For example, and again, I'm speaking on my personal capacity, one of the glaring items we are looking at is the fuel subsidy. We spent 52 billion ringgit just last year burning fuel. My words, and my words alone. That's 74% of our total subsidies, translating to 2.9% of GDP. Contrast this with our expenditure on healthcare operating costs, amounting to only 1.7% of GDP during the same period. Now, contrast again with the development expenditure at 99 billion ringgit Malaysia. What's development expenditure? What does it matter? Because it's about new productive investments, it's about expansion of healthcare, education, and the space where economic potential takes place. Imagine the substantial loss in opportunity cost, with almost two-thirds, but through fuel subsidies. I don't deny, granted, the aim behind these subsidies is noble. It's been decades there, but they have been proven regressive and counterproductive. Don't take my words for it. I think it's important to look at the evidence. How best do we secure then? Yeah? Because we still need to remember the main business of governing is to ensure that everyday challenges faced by the rakyat in dealing with the cost of living is managed well. Social well-being is not a luxury, but it's a fundamental human right. So how do you secure these savings? Because once you do it, and you're able to plug in Rakyat's immediate needs, because there are, of course, different policy prescriptions on cash transfers and other sorts of investments, but I believe the government remains committed to fostering prosperity, ensuring the dignity of every citizen is secured through a robust safety net that adheres to international best standards. We, Malaysia, we're a signatory to the Sustainable Development Goals alluded to by your director. We must accord the best protection to all our citizens, integrating the 9 pillars of social security of the ILO into a comprehensive social protection strategy. And sometimes, as Dr. Stephen Cate warns us, don't be so occupied about targeting the poor, because when you target the poor, you end up with really poor outcomes. And it's not that you will never be in a precarious situation. Anyone along your life cycle can fall into a particular mishap, accident, and you would need this basic safety net to help you bounce up or bounce back. So every individual, irrespective of their background, has a chance to enjoy social and economic mobility, all the while secure and a meaningful and dignified life. So I just want to end this particular paragraph by asking you to imagine the utilization or removal of unproductive subsidies which countries like Iran and even Oman have taken actions on, to invest instead in healthcare so that more money can be spent on health promotion and prevention, so that young people need not be burdened with the job of financing the older generation's escalating medical needs. It's going to be a J curve, so it's going to get worse as you grow older. Ladies and gentlemen, so I think I also previously shared in my public engagement my conversation that I had with my eldest, Safia. She told me in my second term, when I was worried about seeking re-election, not to be disheartened if I didn't make it. For any job contracts, they're supposed to be finite. So the few years you secure, whether with Pradana Fellows, whether with the different ministries you serve, is an opportunity to initiate something meaningful. But make no mistake, it does not last forever. I think about the conversation I had with Safia often as we come up with suggestions, because you do need to place your suggestions, your grand ambitions, and arrange them in a critical matrix to prioritize the key areas you need to focus on. You cannot do everything. So much has been spoken on the need to not only expand our tax base, but integrate our fragmented database to further develop downstream the resources at our disposal. Now, we used to talk about petroleum, but today we're having to face the challenging specter of REEs. So if you don't tackle it carefully, we're going to lose out the opportunity to follow through with our initial development model via Petronas. We develop the downstream and our own capabilities, not just sell raw resources to the highest bidder. So deepening our economic complexity requires a fine-tuned, mission-driven linkage across sectors in the industries, such as the Industrial Master Plan that MITI launched. It will also require, in my humble opinion, a more flattened hierarchical structure that values talent and performance to unearth the best in serving the fast-paced challenges of today. In our committee, we really value, regardless of your position, the best ideas that a person can offer. Now, those ideas should really be celebrated and, of course, acted upon. Because it's one thing to give an idea, it's another working on it. Youth and women. I actually chanced upon the 2023 Annual Economic and Social Council Youth Forum. It was just organized by the United Nations under the theme Accelerating the Recovery from the COVID-19 Disease and the Full Implementation of the 2030 Agenda for SDG at all levels. my team member as the scouts, so most of us are, we follow instructions and do good things. But the point is, I think I was listening and referring to one of the participants where they said it involved 150 participants from 22 countries. They presented their assessment, all young people, vision, and recommendations for member states' consideration before the SDG Summit in September 2023. Young people are ready, willing, and able to participate in bigger conversations about their lives and futures. And that's why the report stated that young people must be placed at the heart of all mobilization efforts to provide them with the opportunity to shape the agenda. So I actually am looking forward to some questions if the organizer permits, because I feel there's one thing sharing from my end. It's also important to hear from you, because I'm sure you have your own insights that have helped you manage and survive the current experience you've had in government. I would just add, like, one of the key things I feel before I go into how we plan to promote more youth-centric and female-centric gender equality in the budget and the government, I think the importance of having clear-cut sense and understanding of boundaries as we navigate professionalism at work, in the home space, but also the readiness to prepare ourselves with the necessary mental resilience. I say this because I think one of the most important things in school, when I send my children to school, is to ensure they have a very strong ecosystem that supports their mental health, not just from the onslaught or the challenges that's presented in all forms, but also to make sure they understand the importance of maximizing their own talent and the fact that they're going to be treated the same regardless who their parents are. In Belanja 1 2024, there's much incentives to further support the spirit of volunteerism, which was one of the key facets of findings what youth people want. Young people want to be given the space to volunteer. Young people want to basically contribute to the future. And it's stated that among youth between 18 to 20 years old, there's a program called Pay It Forward. A reward will be given provided to youth who have successfully participated in volunteering activities with an entity recognized by the government. We also see the introduction of Rakan Muda. I'm quite proud of this. I was 15, I think, when I first heard of it. And sometimes in Malaysia, it doesn't really matter how the rose smells, as long as you know it's an important flower. So it really doesn't matter which prime minister introduced it, but we do need institutional memory to make sure that we build on existing capacities and strengths. So there's much as well programs that's offered, whether it's TVET, whether it's for women, and I'm sure all of you are going to be experts in the reading the budget, since I have 0 minutes left. So I'll end with my final para, basically. To all of you, I think we've alluded to this in terms of the geopolitical tensions forming the barrier of what we can or cannot do within our control and boundaries and borders. So we do need to build our own inner resilience. This is where we have to come together. And it really breaks my heart because I first joined, my political life began with a multiracial party. Even Palestine began with a nation that was multi-religious and multicultural. So that is something that we as Malaysians have to be not just holding sacred, but we also need to appreciate and hold it with great pride. As John Lewis Gaddis woefully reminded us on the need to be strategic. To avoid mistakes, we need to align potentially unlimited aspirations with necessarily limited capabilities. Expanding means may attain more ends, but not all, because ends can be infinite and means can never be. So whatever balance you strike, there will be a link of what's real and what's imagined between your current location and your intended destination. Let's not go back what I thought it would be like when we are in government to what it is today. Of course, there will be a gap, but whoever said governing would be easy, it is a heavy responsibility that reminds you to carry it wisely. So I would like to thank the entire Youth Economic Forum Committee, volunteers, and the Perdana Fellows alumni for this wonderful forum. I believe you're making significant impact, so please speak up. Dan alang-alang menyeluk perkasam, biarlah sampai ke pangkal lengan. Selamat berjuang Perdana Fellows. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you very much.